When the room and books had been shown, with some bickerings between the brother and sister that I did my utmost to appease or mitigate, Mary Ann brought me her doll, and seemed to be very loquacious on the subject of its fine clothes, its bed, its chest of drawers, and other appurtenances. But Tom told her to hold her clamour, that Miss Grey might see his rocking-horse, which, with a most important bustle, he dragged forth from its corner into the middle of the room, loudly calling on me to attend to it. Then, ordering his sister to hold the reins, he mounted, and made me stand for 10 minutes, watching how manfully he used his whip and spurs. Meantime, however, I admired Mary Ann's pretty doll and all its possessions, and then told Master Tom he was a capital rider, but I hoped he would not use his whip and spurs so much when he rode a real pony. "Oh, yes, I will," said he, laying on with redoubled ardour. "I'll cut into him like smoke. My word, but he shall sweat for it." This was very shocking, but I hoped in time to be able to work a reformation. "Now you must put on your bonnet and shawl," said the little hero, "and I'll show you my garden." "And mine," said Mary Ann. Tom lifted his fist with a menacing gesture. She uttered a loud, shrill scream, ran to the other side of me, and made a face at him. "Surely, Tom, you would not strike your sister. I hope I shall never see you do that." "You will sometimes. I'm obliged to do it now and then to keep her in order." "But it is not your business to keep her in order. You know, that is for—" "Well, now go and put on your bonnet." "I don't know. It is very cloudy and cold. It seems likely to rain, and you know I have had a long drive." "No matter. You must come. I shall allow of no excuses," replied the consequential little gentleman. And as it was the first day of our acquaintance, I thought I might as well indulge him. It was too cold for Mary Ann to venture, so she stayed with her mamma, to the great relief of her brother, who liked to have me all to himself. The garden was a large one, and tastefully laid out. Besides several splendid dahlias, there were some other fine flowers still in bloom, but my companion would not give me time to examine them. I must go with him across the wet grass to a remote sequestered corner, the most important place in the grounds, because it contained his garden. There were 2 round beds, stocked with a variety of plants. In one there was a pretty little rose-tree. I paused to admire its lovely blossoms. "Oh, never mind that," said he contemptuously. "That's only Mary Ann's garden. Look, this is mine." After I observed every flower, and listened to a disquisition on every plant, I was permitted to depart. But first, with great pomp, he plucked a polyanthus and presented it to me, as one conferring a prodigious favour. I observed, on the grass about his garden, certain apparatus of sticks and corn, and asked what they were. "Traps for birds." "Why do you catch them?" "Papa says they do harm." "And what do you do with them when you catch them?" "Different things. Sometimes I give them to the cat, sometimes I cut them in pieces with my penknife, but the next I mean to roast alive." "And why do you mean to do such a horrible thing?" "For 2 reasons. First, to see how long it will live, and then to see what it will taste like." "But don't you know it is extremely wicked to do such things? Remember, the birds can feel as well as you, and think, how would you like it yourself?" "Oh, that's nothing. I'm not a bird, and I can't feel what I do to them." "But you will have to feel it some time, Tom. You have heard where wicked people go when they die, and if you don't leave off torturing innocent birds, remember you will have to go there, and suffer just what you have made them suffer." "Oh, pooh! I shan't. Papa knows how I treat them, and he never blames me for it. He says it is just what he used to do when he was a boy. Last summer he gave me a nest full of young sparrows, and he saw me pulling off their legs and wings and heads, and never said anything, except that they were nasty things, and I must not let them soil my trousers. And Uncle Robson was there too, and he laughed and said I was a fine boy." "But what would your mamma say?" "Oh, she doesn't care. She says it's a pity to kill the pretty singing birds, but the naughty sparrows and mice and rats I may do what I like with. So now, Miss Grey, you see it is not wicked." "I still think it is, Tom, and perhaps your papa and mamma would think so too if they thought much about it. However," I internally added, "they may say what they please, but I am determined you shall do nothing of the kind as long as I have power to prevent it." He next took me across the lawn to see his mole traps, and then into the stackyard to see his weasel traps, one of which, to his great joy, contained a dead weasel, and then into the stable to see, not the fine carriage horses, but a little rough colt, which he informed me had been bred on purpose for him, and he was to ride it as soon as it was properly trained. I tried to amuse the little fellow, and listened to all his chatter as complacently as I could, for I thought if he had any affections at all, I would endeavour to win them, and then in time I might be able to show him the error of his ways. But I looked in vain for that generous, noble spirit his mother talked of, though I could see he was not without a certain degree of quickness and penetration, when he chose to exert it. When we re-entered the house, it was nearly tea-time. Master Tom told me that as papa was from home, he and I and Mary Ann were to have tea with mamma for a treat, for on such occasions she always dined at luncheon-time with them, instead of at 6 o'clock. Soon after tea Mary Ann went to bed, but Tom favoured us with his company and conversation till 8. After he was gone, Mrs. Bloomfield further enlightened me on the subject of her children's dispositions and acquirements, and on what they were to learn and how they were to be managed, and cautioned me to mention their defects to no one but herself. My mother had warned me before to mention them as little as possible to her, for people did not like to be told of their children's faults, and so I concluded I was to keep silence on them altogether. About 9:30, Mrs. Bloomfield invited me to partake of a frugal supper of cold meat and bread. I was glad when that was over, and she took her bedroom candlestick and retired to rest, for though I wished to be pleased with her, her company was extremely irksome to me, and I could not help feeling that she was cold, grave, and forbidding, the very opposite of the kind, warm-hearted matron my hopes had depicted her to be. End of Chapter 2. Recording by Melissa.